Okay, hi everybody. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and Jennifer, are you there?
Yes, still here.
Okay, cool. Would you please call the roll?
Certainly. All right, please state your name for the record. Members from the City of Colton.
Frank Navarro.
Thank you. And then members from the City of Loma Linda.
Phil Duper.
Thank you. Members from the County of San Bernardino 3rd District.
Don Rao.
Thank you. Members from the City of Highland.
Penny Lilburn.
Thank you. And members from the City of San Bernardino.
John Valdivia.
Theodore Sanchez.
Thank you very much.
Okay, very good. And so we have a quorum. Let's go ahead and recognize any closed session public comments. Ms. Clerk, are there any public comments?
There are no public comments. Again, I gave the public until 1 p.m. today to submit public comments via email. I received none, and there are none here present at the meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So let's break into closed session real quick. I don't know, from the IT perspective, do we need a separate call-in number or access code, or
yes, you
does
guys,
IT on your end will just...
Yes, correct. In the email that was given to you, you were provided the conference code or the conference number and the access code. So go ahead and dial that on a telephone, and we'll meet you in the closed session room.
Okay, very good. So let's hang up, and then we'll call back in or Zoom back in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mark Gibbs.
Good afternoon.
You did away with the facial hair.
Yeah, I figured I was in disguise today. I'm glad you recognized me.
Yeah, no, you should have kept it. It looks good on you, man.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, is it the wife? She made you get rid of it, huh? It's usually the person that makes you get rid of it.
Interestingly, today happens to be our wedding anniversary, so it's my gift.
Oh.
Yeah, my gift to
Yeah, there you go. That was the gift to her, huh? She was like, get rid of it. All right. Well, hey, congratulations on that. Good.
Congratulations.
How many years?
Thanks. 20.
20 years. Awesome. Good for you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mark.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that. My wife appreciates the beard being gone, too.
Yeah.
Dial in with the phone. I think his is just having issues. Cause see, he's right here.
Okay.
Theodore just heard. McAllen.
Yeah. But he's supposed to dial the phone.
Is that what you did just now? I think he's, or, yeah, he's not muted currently. Is he still on the list?
Okay. Are you getting any audio, though? You're still muted.
And he's joined the audio for the meeting, correct? On the computer? He has to click join audio.
So he says he needs to be admitted.
See? Top of the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're seeing you in here.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not. Yeah. Hang on, I'm gonna hand you the gem real quick.
Hi, again. Could you try to? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that would be me. And then usually it'll ask me if you, or it'll alert me that you're trying to enter the meeting. But according to my screen, you are in the meeting. Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, so you still have to call. Mm-hmm. issues? Yes, 971-6580-5178. And then. Let's see if we can hear you.
Okay.
Hello, you're there. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, sorry.
Here we go.
Zoom's having problems today. It's not your fault.
Okay, everybody, this is Mayor Valdivia. Can everybody hear me? I'm
Yes.
calling in. I am here. I have Zoom, but we're having some difficulties on my end. But nonetheless, we'll go ahead and begin. Let's go ahead and begin our public session of today's meeting for San Bernardino International Airport. And I'm going to ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Yes, I shall call roll again. Please state your names for the record. Members from the City of Colton.
Frank Navarro.
Thank you. Member from the City of Loma Linda. One moment.
Phil Duper, and I think Dr. Rigsby is here also.
Okay. Member Rigsby, are you with us as well?
He was there a minute ago and looks like he dropped off the list.
Okay. All righty. Member from the County of San Bernardino, 3rd District.
Don Rao.
Thank you. Member from the City of Highland.
Penny Lilburn, and alternate Larry McKellen is there as well.
Thank you. And members from the City of San Bernardino.
John Valdivia.
Theodore Sanchez.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's go ahead, and if you have a flag nearby, and we'll go ahead and say our Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item number E, items to be added or deleted. Ms. Clerk, are there any items? Or
No.
Mr. Burrows?
Mr. Burrows.
No items, sir.
Very good. Any disclosures from our board members?
I do have one, Mr. President. No, I'd like to abstain from item number 9, please.
All right. So noted. All right. Thank you. Any others? Okay, hearing none and moving on to item G, informational items. Mr. Burrows.
We have a
Executive
report
Director's
out of closed session.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, before we move on to item G, let's, if we could back up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, please, go ahead. If we could get a report out.
Yeah, in
Closed
closed
session.
session, the items listed under closed session A through D were not discussed in closed session. And items E and F, there was no reportable action taken in closed session.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Heward. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's get into our director's report. Mr. Burrows.
Yes, we do have a few informational items for you, and on behalf of your staff, we do want to just send best regards out to the entire commission, and hope everybody's safe and well. Your airport remains open, and we continue to make sure that we're trying to keep up with all the moving parts here in the industry, literally. So a few in-house things here that we want to do is have Ms. Pritchett give you a quick personnel update. So, Kat, if you would.
Thank you and good afternoon. Just one quick update. Brandy Goodman, who has been with our clerk of the board team for approximately 4 years, has accepted a position as assistant city clerk with the city of Newport Beach. We're excited for her, new endeavor, but we're also very proud to announce that Jennifer Rodriguez, who has been with the clerk of the board 3 years on Friday, has been placed in that position as a promotion. So at this time, we are currently recruiting for a staff analyst for the clerk of the board. In addition, we will be flying a position for maintenance manager, hopefully by the end of the week. So with that, everyone stay healthy.
And then I'd like to move on to Mr. Gibbs. As many of you may have seen, there's a number of sweeping changes, throughout various industries, but certainly in the airport industry, it has been a very active several weeks in keeping up with all of the new guidance, all of the new regulatory changes, and I'm just really proud of the SBD team for keeping up with that as we've gone along. In the meantime, we've got an industry to also support, and that includes our airlines, who are massively impacted by the COVID pandemic. And we're happy to report out that between our supply chain and our airline sector, that SBD is doing its part to help them in a time of need. So I'd like Mr. Gibbs just kind of run through a quick overview of what we've been doing on the ground here to help the airlines. Mark?
Thank you, Mike. We've been working through one of our MROs on site. You guys are familiar with Unical, and they're accommodating quite a few additional Delta aircraft at your airport. So the diagram that's up, I hope you guys can see this, but these are locations on the airfield that are normally not used for aircraft parking. We're required to keep them open for use by aviation activity of all types. But in this current industry crisis, as Mike had indicated, they're being repurposed for the time being. So if you look at the far west end of the screen there, you'll see a triangle that's depicted green. That's normally not used for aircraft parking, really wasn't designed for it, but in these trying times, it's been converted for use as aircraft parking. And I think it's worth mentioning, this is a company called AeroCloud that our airport manager, Nick Person, is working collaboratively with, and they're providing this to airports around the country for use to help plan and identify where these additional aircraft are being parked. So what you see on that diagram is actually what's out there all the way down to the aircraft type. So we've opened up this infield area that was semi-improved for use in air show parking and placed aircraft on it. We've also got some temporary closures of 2 taxiways. That includes taxiway Bravo and Echo, as well as the area that's historically used for the air show itself, and that's over in the general aviation area, just south of the new hangar complexes. So we've got an additional 55 aircraft that are all Delta aircraft that are parked at your airport. It's primarily A320s, Airbus A320s, and Boeing 757s, with a few others sprinkled in there. So this will be a short-term use of the property for this, we hope. Of course, it's an evolving industry crisis. We hope it doesn't last too long, but in the meantime, we're trying to do our part and help the industry out when and where we can. Thank you.
And then I just buttress that with, in addition to planes, we have quite a number of vehicle parking, temporary parking facilities opening up. Obviously, parking for automobiles, new vehicles, and the like are also in high demand, as well as supporting our trucking industry. So we have a number of additional truck parking positions that our property manager, Mr. Hale, has been very busy trying to free up space to accommodate our industries as we go forward. The last.
Hey, Mike, a quick question for you on the map. If we could pull that map back up of the, yeah, that one. Thank you. The green spot, now, is that an improved surface, or did we have to make any improvements to that surface if it's not ideally suited for
yeah, so the
parking place?
Mayor, the green triangle is partially improved. So as Mark indicated, we did do some improvements there to prep it for vehicle parking for the SBD Fest a few years ago. And so it can support aircraft, but with Unical's assistance, we shuffled some of the smaller narrow-body aircraft, so the weight loading was sufficient for that. The green strip there is actually a portion of a taxiway, which absolutely can accommodate aircraft loading. And eventually, many of the aircraft on the eastern port of the taxiway Echo to the east will be repositioned into that green area to free up access as we do some construction work out there. So it's
Okay,
it is
good
a
enough.
it is a very active and moving process there, as Mr. Person can attest to. They had quite a bit of activity today, and Delta's being quite cooperative. So we are happy to have them.
Wonderful.
So the last update is related to what we all watch regularly, is the activity in Washington, D.C. Just after our last commission meeting, Congress did, in fact, pass a $10 billion airport relief package. It's called the CARES Act, and most of that funding was focused on airports that were the most heavily impacted by the reductions in passenger airline activity, as well as helping airports stabilize and continue to pay debt service on their revenue bonds. That money has been actively working through FAA. FAA continues to work during this process. And just yesterday, we got the final grant award from FAA for our airport, which really is focused more on offsetting, sanitizing, staffing, and additional payroll expenses during the process. So because we don't carry a heavy debt burden, and because we do not have that concentration of passenger, the first wave of funding to this airport was in the amount of $69,000, but FAA is working diligently to make sure that that money gets transmitted to us and the rest of the airport community. So there are additional funding rounds of the current year FAA AIP grant award processes that will follow, which we are actively tracking and trying to get prepared for, even on today's commission agenda. So again, FAA has and continues to be a partner to airports, and we appreciate the good work that they're doing. That concludes my reports.
And please note for the record that Mayor or Councilmember Rigsby has attended the meeting in person.
Welcome. All right, so that concludes informational items, Mayor.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Are there any questions on item number 2, A through D, from our commission members? Okay, the item on the airline logistics support services, I think the good news for us is that we're the benefactors in a large part with revenue increases. So those items will be captured and reported out as we close out this fiscal year. Can you give the commission kind of idea of what are the receipts and tickets and the value of some of these parking movements here with big airlines coming to our airport to park the planes?
Yes, absolutely, Mayor. So we literally track this not just daily, but a couple times a day now. And some of that imagery you saw there, Nick and the team were able to source some beta software that actually helps track each one of these aircraft on a per aircraft basis. So obviously the amount of money per plane changes on how big the plane is. We've got to obviously adhere to appropriate fees, not usurious fees during these times. But currently with the roughly 55 aircraft that are out there, that equates to about $52,000 a month presently. On the trucking and logistics side, with the vehicle and truck parking, that's on the order of about $70,000 a month. So again, we're not charging extraordinary fees. We're going to be fair and reasonable, but there has to be fair market value compensation for this. And again, it's important that we do this, but those receipts are very timely and helpful, as some of our other business lines are much slower.
What's the long-term, are there any long-term obligations that we've signed? I mean, it's kind of hard to predict a crystal ball here, and we don't have that crystal ball, but what are the agreements set forth by the parking of these planes? Is it a month to month or week by week case? What have they agreed to?
Yeah, so this right now is about a 3-month forecast in the current agreement. Obviously, that can be extended, and the per aircraft billings are actually tracked regularly, routinely, day by day, week by week, but billed monthly.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, let's move on to commission consent items 3 through 6.
Move consent calendar.
All right, a motion by Mayor Navarro of Colton.
Mr. President, before you ask for a second, I do have a question of staff on number 5.
Yes, please.
Just briefly.
Sure. Go ahead.
Could you clarify that this, the ARF machine, that's the foam testing machine system, that is an annual purchase that we have to do of that system every year?
Yeah, actually, I'll defer that to Nick. He did the research on this and would be the better source. Nick, if you could chime in.
Sure, I appreciate the question. No, this is a one-time purchase to accommodate for the annual testing requirement that the FAA sets forth.
Okay.
So this is a one-time purchase.
All right, very good. Thank you.
All right, is there a second to Mayor Navarro? Moving on commission consent items, is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, we have a motion by Navarro with a second by Councilman Sanchez.
I will go ahead and
All
take
right,
the roll.
if the clerk will call the roll, please. Thank you.
Yes. Member Navarro,
Yes.
Member Rigsby,
Yes.
Member Rao,
Yes.
Member Lilburn,
Yes.
Member Valdivia,
Yes.
and Member Sanchez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to commission action items. Item number 7, consider and adopt proposed budget adjustments for fiscal year 19 and 20. Mr. Burrows?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll make a comment here and then defer to Mr. Kozanow, our Director of Finance. The major adjustment we have before you was related to our air traffic control tower, and I want to make just a comment there on the continued work that Mr. Gibbs particularly has been doing with the FAA. As some of the commissioners may recall, we were forecast to actually be entered into what's called the Contract Tower Program through the FAA, where the FAA actually offsets some of your operating costs for your control tower based on the amount of aircraft operations. And that program was reopened early part of last year. We were one of the first airports to apply, and we have been in a review process with FAA, which was to have concluded sometime back, roughly about almost 2 months ago now. And in part, some of that is due to the extra workload that FAA is facing dealing with COVID and the constriction within the industry. But we are continuing to pursue getting that approval because that immediately reduces our tower costs. And that's probably the largest dollar amount you're going to see on the budget adjustments that we're proposing. And this is a short-term extension to continue to pay our tower staff. But as of yesterday, we were still on the phone with DC trying to push that issue. If we do get further information, and the commissioners can certainly be helpful in talking to our representatives in Washington, we will get you that information as we receive it. But Mr. Kozanow, if you would, go over the other adjustments.
The other adjustments are related to refuse, and what we have done is consolidated 2 areas and moved them over into the accounting string or cost center where the refuse is being paid out of, and then the final adjustment there is a $7,000 increase for increased refuse activity. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you. If there's no questions, is there a motion for approval?
You said 47,000, not 7, right?
The adjusted budget moved up to 47,000, but
Yeah, okay.
the net increase was $7,000.
Okay, thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, and there's a motion and a second, and if the clerk would please call the roll.
Yes, may I just confirm, Member Sanchez motioned and Member Lilburn second?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Please state your name for the record. Member Navarro?
Yes.
Member Rigsby?
Yes.
Member Rao?
Yes.
Member Lilburn?
Yes.
Member Valdivia?
Yes.
And Member Sanchez?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, item number 8, ratify submission of a temporary deferment request to IVDA for certain interim debt service obligations under COVID-19 protections.
So again, I'll
Mr.
start this
Yep.
one just briefly here. So I talked a little bit about airport debt obligations, and we are a bit unique in that regard at SBD, trying to stay lean and mean as we have all these years. So thankfully, we carry very little debt. The majority of that is interagency debt service back to our sister agency, the Inland Valley Development Agency. And as we navigated the COVID landscape, Mr. Kazanal and I certainly thought of protectionary measures we could take. As you just heard earlier in the reports, we cash flow wise are maintaining, I think, good cash flow, thankfully. We didn't quite know where that would stand, and again, we don't know as weeks proceed what that landscape will continue to look like. But this item we thought would be prudent to bring forward as, again, in an abundance of caution, a bit of a stopgap temporarily to ensure that we've got as positive of a cash flow picture for your airport in the coming months. So Mark, if you would, maybe go over the details and answer questions.
Thank you. So this particular loan from Inland Valley Development Agency is for $3.9 million. It was made the 19th of November 2014, and we are request the commission to ratify the submission of our deferment for a payment that is due June 1st of $597,061.09. We have been very cautious about doing this. We went through the existing loan docs, and we have a couple of adjustments that we will need to make for changes in the interest rate, as the interest rate is the greater of 2% or the current lay for local agency investment fund of the state of California.
And then I would just note that this action, should you support this, would need to be brought forward before the IVDA board for the discretionary review on that side. But staff believes it's a prudent safety net. And if it's not needed, that's great, but this gives a little more breathing room. Happy to answer any questions.
Mike, on page 76, second paragraph on background, staff report suggests that there was an initial $3.9 million loan. What was the loan for, and what's the balance of the loan that we owed IVDA?
So what the 2014 action was a restatement of this original loan, which actually goes back to the early 2000s in origin. And for the standing commissioners that have seen the airport over the years, Penny and Larry will, I think, remember in the early days, our member agencies on SBIAA actually wrote checks to help fund the operations before we had any substantial tenant activity. That's what kept the lights on. And in 2004, the IVDA, in support of its mission to help the airport, actually repaid all of that plus interest to all the members. So all the cities in the county got a reimbursement check, not from SBIAA, but from the IVDA. And then SBIAA had a standing obligation to repay that. So as of 2021, we've got a balance outstanding of 3.9 million. It used to be 4.2, but it has been paid down. So SBIAA has been whittling this down over time. But we think, again, in an abundance of caution, this is just a good protectionary step to take pending the SBIAA approval.
Okay, very good. Open it up for questions.
Mr. President, I have a question of Mr. Burrows.
Please, yeah.
Mike, I remember back in December when we were doing the audit and the history of the loan, and you went over it with us, and I tried to dig the minutes of that back up, and my question wasn't reflected then. So just tell me, because I don't remember. We missed a payment on both of these loans last year. Is that correct?
Yes, we actually were behind on that, and that was just a timing issue. We've actually addressed that, and so that prior payment balance will actually be caught up. So we're only talking about the pending payment for this fiscal, and that's a great point.
Okay. And why were we delinquent? I know you explained it, I just don't remember it. Why did we hold off? Was it just a cash flow issue?
It was just a cash flow issue. That's all it was.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, is there a motion for approval?
I'll move it.
All right, Mayor Rigsby. All right.
Second.
Second by anybody?
Second, Navarro.
Okay, very good. Let's call the roll.
Member Navarro?
Yes.
Member Rigsby?
Yes.
Member Rao?
Yes.
Member Lilburn?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Member Valdivia?
Yes.
And Member Sanchez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, with the abstention made known by Supervisor Rao. Let's proceed on to item number 9, approve award of contract to AECOM Technical Services in the amount of $98,052 and appropriate 10% contingency to provide design engineering, construction engineering, and bidding support services for runway 624 joint and spall repair project. Mr. Gibbs.
Thank you, Mayor. This project would be for design, construction, and bidding support engineering services for the runway 624 joint seal and pavement repair project. Interestingly, we always think of the runway as being new. The reality is it's now 15 years old and does require some maintenance. So this project would be a design, bid, build project, which is very typical of how the FAA will fund projects. AECOM was selected as the qualified engineer to provide those support services, and that's to the tune of just under $100,000, so $98,052. So this is for the full length of the runway, all in. It's about 50 acres of pavement, and this would replace the joint sills that separate each of the 20-foot panels throughout the runway. Primarily, they've failed, and this has been on our list of projects to do, but failed a little more quickly once they started to deteriorate. So we did a engineering analysis of the project back in December at the request of the FAA when we met to go over our airport capital improvement program with them. But that rate of deterioration seemed to increase in the last 12 months, and we moved the priority of this one forward. That same priority was also exacerbated by the amount of additional activity that take place at the airport, primarily to do with air cargo. So we need to get ahead of this project prior to fourth quarter when things get really, really busy around here. So the steps we've taken since selecting AECOM as the engineer of choice, and I say that because it's an important term, the FAA allows for you to select the most qualified engineer rather than the lowest cost engineer to design a project. And so what they do to balance that out to make sure that we're gaining good value is to perform an independent fee estimate by a third-party neutral aviation firm. In this case, we worked with Burns & McDonnell to develop an independent fee estimate, and the results of that came back in AECOM's favor. So the rates and charges for their scope of services came in below what Burns & McDonnell estimated that it should be, and consequently we believe that it is a fair and appropriate price, and recommend approval of this project and the scope of work for AECOM Technical Services.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gibbs. I see this item as it's a sign of progress, and like Mr. Gibbs had alluded to, is this a primary? My question is this a primary runway, and how will it impact UPS and FedEx? We don't want to compromise a good customer now. And secondly, what's the timeline of completion? You had alluded that we want to get this done before fourth quarter. So what's the time frame here, and how long will this take?
Those are great questions, Mayor. So the first is, yes, we're cognizant of the ongoing activity and the impact to our tenants. So any project work that would take place would be conducted at night to minimize the impacts. We do have some nighttime activities for our cargo aircraft, and we would work and communicate with them closely to develop schedules to minimize impacts. But we do foresee the night work taking place because it will require runway closures to perform the work. We are a single runway airport, so that is very, very important to us and our customers. The total cost of construction, which is not what's before you today, but engineer estimates for the construction portion of this work is about $2.7 million. So we'll probably take a phased approach to complete the work, and that will get sorted out during the design phase of the project. But we do intend to design this in phases to allocate the appropriate amount of funds to actually construct the project.
I see. So this is just design and engineering. And when do we anticipate the build portion? Is that just later next capital or fiscal year? Or
Yeah, so we hope to move into that as quickly as we can. This contract would allow up to 6 weeks for the design to be completed. And,
Got it. Okay.
And we would begin bidding it shortly thereafter.
Okay, very good. And the fiscal impact, we have money in this 52592, so we have some money there. All right. Is there any further questions? Not a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
I'll move it. All right, Councilman Sanchez, and I'll second it. All right, let's call a roll on it.
One moment, just to verify, the motion was carried by Member Sanchez, and who carried the second motion?
Me, Valdivia.
Okay, thank you. All right. Member Navarro?
Yes.
Member Rigsby?
Yes.
For the record, Member Rao has abstained. Member Lilburn?
Yes.
Member Valdivia?
Yes.
And Member Sanchez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Item number 10, Mr. Burrows, the status of our action plan for our airport.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So we find ourselves in a very different April, as everybody does. So thank you again, Commissioners, for your support of the emergency declaration at our last commission meeting. We moved quickly into that mode and continue to ensure that we help stabilize our tenants, our businesses, and the operating environment here at the airport. I'm happy to report that those efforts have been successful thus far, and we don't let up on times like this. So work continues as we go forward. Your action in that last item is quite important to continue our work with the FAA. So the grant funding horizon, as I mentioned earlier in the commission meeting today, you have to be bid ready in order to line up for the grant money. And so staying ahead and doing the advanced planning at this particular juncture is going to be vital to keeping the airport running at the optimal level. So we continue that coordination, but work must continue. And so our finance team is also in their spare time starting to craft your draft budget for next fiscal. And so we are, when we're not counting planes, trucks, or cars through the week, we are projecting your operating budgets for next year. We should have a working draft going into next month, and are definitely on track for your budget review in June. So that is certainly where we've been. In the month of May, I just want to note, we, as we have in past years, had been tapped again to support our international trade community with a World Trade Week conference that we've done for a few years now. That obviously, given the state of affairs in these times, we have, with the support of our Department of Commerce colleagues and international partners, elected to move to the fall, as many events have done. But we continue the work, and we'll provide an update on the international trade arena at your May meeting coming up. So with that, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. We appreciate it. And Ms. Clerk, let's go ahead and go to item K, open session public comments. Are there any comments?
There are no public comments. I have not received a public comment at this meeting.
All right, very good. And let's open it up to commission members. Any commission member comments? All right.
I just want to say, I'm sorry, Mayor. I just wanted to comment. It's exciting to see all the construction going on the East Gate as I drive by. So I just want to commend the airport staff to keep up the great work, and thanks for working through these COVID times, and you guys are doing a great job.
Very good. That's a good word of encouragement to staff. I know they appreciate it, and we thank our staff for all the dedicated efforts in spite of what we're going through right now. And, we're having some sunny weather here, so as Mike alluded to, the walls are going up, that's going to be key. Maybe the cement will, of course, the cement will cure faster, so good. We'll get it built. And with that, if there's any other comments? Any other comments? All right, thank you all, commission members, for joining today. Thank you. Be well and healthy. We'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting to the next meeting on Wednesday, May 27th of 2020.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Mark Gibbs, before you leave, Kat, can I conference call you guys for real quick, just for 2 minutes afterwards?
Absolutely.
You bet.
All right. I'll call you, Kat. I think I have your number.
Okay, I have my phone.
All right, thanks. Bye.